SISU Tour is back for Tour de France, and this time it brings some new ways of riding, well, at least for me. As usual, there are going to be 7 stages that will work as individual races, a general classification, both overall and separate for each category, and the new thing, sprint and climbing classifications. And the great thing about those is they do not care about the position in which you cross the banner. They only care about your time on the segment, which means that even if you get dropped, you can still go all out on those segments and compete. And that's what my goal is going to be in this series. There is zero chance for me to place in the GC, but can I possibly compete in sprint championships? We'll see. There is one problem though. Originally it was supposed to work in a way that all segment times would be added up and the classification would be made of those. Unfortunately, when some of the segments repeat in a route, ZWIFT Power can only record your best time. And that was actually the case here. Today we are racing on Bon Voyage route and there are 10 sprint segments in total, but only 4 unique ones, which means that only 4 segment times will be recorded for the classification. This wasn't clear before the start of the series. Even the event organizers didn't know about the fact that ZWIFT Power works like this, and that definitely affects the results a little bit. I was making efforts on all the segments instead of focusing on each one just once and then saving power for the finishing sprint. And that wouldn't have mattered if this information remained hidden for the entire duration of stage 1, so the riders who raced later wouldn't have an opportunity to optimize their strategy compared to people who raced on Friday. But unfortunately it got revealed before the stage 1 concluded, which sort of sucks. But it is what it is and we will have to try to make it work regardless. By the way, if you are racing for climbing classification, it is going to work the same way on stage 6. The question is, what is the best strategy to attack the sprint classification? The first option is of course to stay with the front for as long as possible, because that would bring you to the sprint segments with the best momentum. The cost for this is obvious. Since all the categories are mixed in those races, the effort level to stay with riders that have racing score of 900 and more is insane. The other option is to disregard the general classification completely, ride easy and only focus on those segments. This strategy would optimize your energy, but you would enter those segments at a lower speed. I decided to do the first option. I'm not convinced the second one would be better anyway, and honestly it would be quite boring. So I'm going to try to stay with the front for as long as possible, but I won't kill myself trying to keep up if I cannot anymore, and simply ease up for another group if necessary. And here it will probably be necessary fairly soon. You can see on the power chart that the effort level from the start was insane. And it is not a surprise. Most riders in the top 15 of this race actually had over 850 racing score. We are now approaching the first out of the 10 sprint segments, and this is actually the longest one, almost 800 meters, and it is slightly uphill. The good news is I entered this segment with the front guys, and the question now is, at what power should I ride this? I need to do enough power to not lose a lot of time on this segment, but it should still be controlled so I can continue with the guys. I cannot treat this as a finish line. I settled for a power a little under 400 watts for the first half of the segment and close to 500 watts in the straight section, and I think that was fairly good decision. I lost few seconds to the top guys, but maybe only about 3, and it allowed me to stay with them for a little longer. And what will matter in the sprint classification is consistency anyway. But here you can see how insane the effort was. I didn't get entirely dropped, but just barely. I needed to do over 300 watts to hang even onto the tail of the group. I can tell you this series is no joke. Sprint number 2, I popped the aero boost by just about continued pedaling. My heart rate is 186 BPM, which is very close to my max, so there is not much more extra effort I can do right now. And that's pretty much it for my presence in the front group. I would have been able to continue with them for a little more, but felt this is not a great way to spend all my energy. Now, if I knew that only the best effort for each segment counted, I would have stayed with them until at least the next sprint, because the momentum of the group is actually insanely strong. I will show you that on numbers a little later. but this was still a point at which I thought I would need to perform 10 times, and so I slowed down and decided to wait for the next group. And the timing to do that was almost as horrible as it could have possibly been. I no longer had the draft from the first group, but neither did I have one from the next one yet. So in a way, I need to be fair and say that on this sprint segment, the change of rules actually helped me, because I would have 2 opportunities to improve the result down the road. After this sprint segment, it gets calm for a little bit, and that gives you opportunity to rest. Like I said, I waited for the next group of guys and started preparing for the next set of those sprints. And here we come to the second one in a fairly big group once again, and I decided to take the initiative here and push right from the start, because the momentum from the first group just wasn't here. And as I was mentioning different strategies from the start, I'm actually glad I went with the first one. Not only would that surely result in better GC, but also take a look at the sprint result. The second time on this segment I did actually 5 watts more, but the time was worse by 6 seconds, just because I didn't have the draft. The same thing then happened at the next sprint segment. Once again, I took the initiative and pushed hard. I did almost 200 watts more than in the first lap, but the time was 1 second worse. After each of those segments, I tried to get to the back of the group and regenerate as much energy as possible. And here comes the third sprint, which was a disaster on the first lap, so I really pushed hard again and improved my time by 6 seconds. Now it was time for a final rest before the last lap, after which there would be the final sprint, the Pavé sprint reverse. But even before the first sprint, the group started to ramp up the effort quite a bit, and I did not like it. I can understand the motivation behind it, but for me that was more unnecessary waste of energy. On the long sprint, I tried to do more or less the same thing as before with basically the same result, but I was now getting tired, and after the segment I rested a little too much, so I needed to ramp the power back up to not get dropped. The second sprint was also basically the same as before in terms of duration it took me to complete it, but then on the third sprint of the circuit I pushed really hard, managed to average 460 watts for the segment and recorded my best time here, 16 seconds. So that was the croissant loops done and dusted, and now what was left was the finishing sprint, which is called Pavé sprint reverse. And it is crucial for me to go there with the group, because the initial speed is going to be super important going into this one. Thankfully the group didn't try any monkey business with crazy surges or anything like that, so I was able to finish the final sprint, well, not fresh by any stretch of imagination, but at least at some decent speed. I popped the drafting boost, increased the power, and with my usual 250 meters to go, I went full out. I managed to go to 1100 watts, close to 15 watts per kilo, but unfortunately the energy wasn't there to sustain this, and I honestly didn't finish this one as strong as I would have wanted. After stage number 1, I'm at 41st place out of 218 A category riders, which is the category I'm doing this event in. It's higher than where I should be racing, but since I'm focusing on the sprint here, I told myself I might as well go after the best. I'm losing 14 seconds to the leader, and only the next stages will show how is the sprint classification going to develop. Thank you guys for watching. As usual, if you like this video, subscribe, and if you have a little bit of time before the next episode releases, take a look at my experience racing this event for the first time.